if we're too loud,
Yeah.
then our millions of listeners can always turn down.
Turn down for what?
Turn down for what? Turn down for what? What are we turning down for today?
We are turning down for praise or not praise. Our high school selves
Yeah.
would have potentially been very, very happy
I think if this movie had come out
in 2012.
in 2012 at when Emma Stone was in 2012 as well.
Mm-hmm.
Oh boy, would we not have been able to handle this movie.
Bring back the red hair, man.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, bring back the red hair.
Bring back the red hair. Anyway, we're here talking about Poor Things,
Yes.
which is say the name, Thano.
Say the name.
Yorgos Lanthimos.
Oh, Yorgos Lanthimos, which Yorgos is just George. I don't like that he spells. I know why he spells his name with a Y, so people don't butcher it like they do gyros instead of hero. That's probably why he spells it with a Y instead of a G. But
wait,
I don't like that he spells it with a Y.
But the spelling is Yorgos.
So it should be Yorgos. That's how you would pronounce it.
Yeah, Greek. But if you put a G on there, it's still Jorgos.
So
what would be the concern here?
People would pronounce it Georgios.
But there's no I.
Georgios. Gorgos. Americans can't do G's, my man.
Dude.
They can't do other
Americans
sounds.
are so dumb.
They can't do others.
Anyway, so we're talking about Poor Things. It's Yorgos is, what is it, like his fourth big release.
What are the first two?
Because I know he did Lobster. He did, what was the other movie that came out recently?
The Favorite is the one I'm thinking
The Favorite, and he did Killing of the Sacred Deer.
Yeah.
And I guess he did a movie in 2009 called Dogtooth, which I have not seen. I've seen Killing of the Sacred Deer.
Mm-hmm.
I don't love it. I think it's dumb.
Yeah.
I also don't like Barry Keoghan's dumb fucking face. And the fact that he plays like a really dumb character in that makes me even hate it more.
And you and I were bored to tears during The Favorite.
We were bored to tears.
Bored to tears.
Which is, it's amazing that you have a movie like that, and then we were both just like, did we watch that movie relatively close to when we saw Sorry to Bother You? Because I want to say Sorry to Bother You was also 2018.
You know, all I remember about the Sorry to Bother You here was that was also the Hereditary year.
It was also the Hereditary year.
So saw Hereditary, then had the Won't You Be My Neighbor, Mr. Rogers documentary for me to wash out the scary.
Dude, what a good movie.
What a good movie. What both good movies. And then we saw Sorry to Bother You, and then I saw 8th Grade to wash out the weirdness of Sorry to Bother You.
Sorry to Bother You is so good, though.
It's very good.
Which, funny enough, later, not today, obviously, but very soon we will be also discussing American Fiction, which to me, I almost think of it like a pairing that you could watch together.
Yes, I completely agree.
Yeah.
I completely agree. A great year for the ha-has this year.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
A great year for the ha-has.
A great year for the ha-has. I feel like with the Jennifer Lawrence movie.
Yeah.
American Fiction on its own was very good.
Yes.
Anyone But You.
Anyone But You.
There was another romantic comedy that came out over the summer that Katie and I watched. I'm just blanking right now. That we both thought was actually pretty funny too. Yeah. But anyway, so Poor Things. I'm gonna, like, without getting into like details of it, I think it's good for what it's trying to be. Like, I recognize that this is someone's vision. I think, while I don't like his vision, I think what he is able to do with it works for what he's trying to accomplish.
So let's read the synopsis real quick.
Yes.
The incredible tale about the fantastical evolution of Bella Baxter. Got that alliteration in there. A young woman brought back to life by the brilliant and unorthodox scientist, Dr. Godwin Baxter.
Yes.
So it's definitely fantastical.
Absolutely.
It's definitely the synopsis elicits a Frankenstein story, and that is kind of what we're getting.
Yep.
I do not think the synopsis does it does a good job of not spoiling anything. But like, I don't think it does the tone and scope of the movie justice.
No, but I think...
Not that it needs to.
Not that it needs to.
Yeah.
I think this movie, I don't want to even say like it needs to like kind of clue you into more of what it's going to do.
Yeah.
But I think it kind of needs to, because it needs to prep you for, like, you're going to be watching some weird shit.
It is weird, and Yorgos Lanthimos is a weird.
He is.
He's a weird. He's. You know what? Even though I didn't like The Favorite, and I haven't seen the first two, I will say that I think he's developed enough clout with his audience, where he's like earned his right to be
weird. So I will preface by saying, while I don't love The Lobster, I like The Lobster more than I like The Favorite.
Yes.
I think this, to me, feels more in line with The Lobster.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, The Favorite, honestly, I just...
feels more in line with taking a nap.
I could not imagine sitting through that again.
Yeah.
It was
so boring.
Too painful.
So boring.
So boring. So long.
Yep.
And maybe it's not. This one's long, and I swear I felt the time on this a lot.
I felt it less than you, but I did feel the time.
There was a whole point where I was like, we still got 40 minutes of this.
There was the point where I looked at you and I was like, we still got an hour.
There were multiple points where I turned to you and I said, this movie is too long for this subplot.
Yeah.
So let's get into it. So again, I will say, like, if you're into Yorgos' movies, this movie I think is going to be like right up your alley.
And I would say if you're not into his movies, I'm not saying try this one, but I would say, like, if you can't appreciate this one, then like
it's not for you. He's not for you.
Yeah, fuck off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You kind of have to be like, I'm willing to give this a chance. And
Correct.
I think you might come out and enjoy. Like I said, while I don't love this, I don't even want to say I think it's great. I think it's good.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of good in here. Everybody's acting their ass off.
Yeah.
For what they're supposed to be doing. I think Mark Ruffalo is a really good character in this. He plays such an asshole.
He is such an asshole. So many. Here's my hot take. I think this movie. It's gonna sound strong, and I'll add more nuance later.
Okay.
This movie killed the good for her movie genre.
Ooh, I don't know that it killed it.
Killed is where I'm being too strong, and we'll talk later. But yes, I think this movie has at least brought it forward a bit on the timeline. I think after seeing this movie, good for her movies are not going to hit the same way for me. But anyway,
interesting. Yeah. I'll need more information, more details on that.
In Act 3.
Yeah. So all right. So this movie is broken down into like sections, right? Because Bella is developing as like a person would, right?
Yeah.
Like she is an infant
at the beginning.
And then towards the middle, she kind of starts acting more like a teenager.
It gets slowly less infantile.
Yeah, and then by the end of the movie, like she does become like a full-fledged woman. And the whole point of the movie, I think it makes sense why they do that. I think it gets a little weird.
It gets weird.
In some points. Too weird, I think, even for me.
So I'll say, backing up slightly, because I think we told the audience about our Emma Stone love. I think we haven't properly set the stage as to how much we loved Emma Stone.
Is this where you're going to confess to everybody that you still have an Emma Stone scroll that I gave you?
I have an Emma Stone scroll poster that Javi gave me.
2010.
It's in my room. The last person to comment on it was our priest when he blessed our house.
Oh.
He's like, you got an Emma Stone poster in your room? I'm like, yeah, I do, Father. But the other thing that sticks out for me, she was in that like kind of mediocre LA Noire. Wasn't that what it was called?
Yep.
Yeah. Very
American Gangsters.
Yeah, it was a noir type film. It was mid.
Something like that.
Yeah, it was one of her last like red hair movies. I remember that. But anyway, I forget when that movie came out, but it was like early enough in the smartphone era where like people weren't just taking pictures randomly of like everything. Like taking a picture was still seen as like a specialish thing. Now you take pictures whenever the fuck you want, right?
Yeah.
We specifically went to go take a picture.
It's the Gangster Squad.
We went to go take a picture by the Gangster Squad cardboard cutout, both doing thumbs up, right?
Yep.
So this was special for us.
Yep.
Now, I knew going into this movie that you see a lot of naked Emma Stone.
Yeah.
I felt most uncomfortable at the beginning because at the beginning she is like a baby.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh no.
Yeah.
And I got less comfortable as it went on, ironically, because like The scenes, the scenes are some scenes.
There,
The scenes are
yeah.
some scenes.
There's
But
a lot of scenes that be seen in this movie,
yeah,
and like I understand why you have to, and because that's the thing. Like when you have a baby, like there's a reason why people are very comfortable taking pictures of their baby
naked because
naked
they're not
because
sexual objects.
no,
Yep.
but you cannot expect that in this movie because of the fact that it's Emma Stone.
We've got mission. Actually, not so much missionary. We've got cowgirl. We've got cowgirl.
So much cowgirl
So
in
much
this
cowgirl.
movie.
Yeah.
But like that's also the point. Like it's just such a weird. Like yes, you're supposed to like understand that this is a baby in a woman's body.
Yep.
But the fact that we've had all these years of Emma Stone being sexualized in movies, right? I mean, ECA,
great movie,
is a fantastic movie,
Great
all
movie.
About like
sexualization.
Yeah, sexualizing like
Teenagers,
teenagers, right?
Yeah.
Like and teenage sex life in like a high school setting,
Yep.
right? So like when we were in our teens, like that's kind of more normal.
Yeah.
But this is like the idea if you're like a 50, 60-year-old man watching shows about teenagers and being like, hell yeah.
Did Easy A come out before 2010?
I want to say it did.
So, like, back then, you're seeing high school movies where everybody's clearly 30. Right. Or, I mean, I guess 20s, but, like, and that's what kind of makes it easier to, like,
it makes it
sexualize
slightly
them as
less
an audience.
creepy.
Yeah.
It's still creepy. Like, the idea of it is still creepy.
But she very effectively in this movie acts like a baby.
Yeah. At one point, you said she went full Simple Jack.
Yo,
dude,
yo, it was early on. I was almost wondering if the movie would be like problematic in that way because like
yeah,
she was acting so developmentally debilitated
where it almost feels like you're watching
Simple Jack.
You're watching Simple Jack,
Yeah.
and you're just like at a certain point, it kind of stops being like this is someone playing a child to like this is someone pretending almost to have a mental disability.
Correct.
And you're just like, oh, but I do think it skirts that line, and then it does pass relatively quick in the grand scheme of the runtime.
And for me, it's the characterization that helps it skirt that line because like, hey, this movie is funny. Like there's
so many funny things.
There's so many lines. There's so many funny things to see. Early on, it starts you off with like weird like dog goose hybrids that look hilarious, right? So it's not just funny in the like point and laugh at something. It's not just funny at the let's point and laugh at Simple Jack type of way.
Yeah.
But because you see this development in her character, and because she's able to like take ownership of her sophistication, that to me takes the early like problematic scene and massages it to a point where I forgot feeling so uncomfortable with that.
So there is a line in this movie where so we have Dr. Godwin, who she just calls God, which is
it's a
If Thano could boot me on the nose every single time,
yeah, I would.
His finger would be on my nose the entire time.
Exactly.
But so we have this character who is the one who, quote unquote, creates Bella, right?
Yes.
And his idea is, why don't we have his new assistant, Max, marry Bella? Because clearly, this guy is infatuated with her because it's still Emma Stone.
And I hated Max.
He's so boring. He's so bland.
I was surprised, honestly, that he gets an arc.
He does.
And I was surprised. If you told me he was going to get that arc at the beginning, I would have been utterly shocked. But, like, I was just like, you are a creep. I thought Godwin was a total creep. Like, there's a scene earlier on where, like, they're laying together in a bed. And, like, it's supposed to be, like, a father and daughter. But I was just like, but she's just so not. It just looks. And
Yes.
the camera focused on her legs to the point where I'm like, this is supposed to seem creepy. Like,
Yeah, but when that scene happens, Max asks him like, "Oh, I thought you had made her for you to be your,"
yeah,
and Dr. Baxter goes like, like anything that would be attractive to her, like has gone away because like right now she's more like a daughter because like she's such an infant.
yeah.
And he like grew attached to that. Like he cannot see her as like an adult, which is what she physically looks like. He sees her as a child, which she physically acts like.
Which, by the way, we have not said Willem Dafoe's name yet.
We have not.
What a perfect
dude.
perfect actor for this.
I'm surprised he has not played a character quite like this before. Like this is your new retelling of Frankenstein, and he is the Frankenstein.
Yeah.
Or the Dr. Frankenstein, right?
I see a bit of his lighthouse role in this character.
A bit.
And I don't know how much of that is just like the essence of Willem Dafoe and how much of that is just like him finding a niche to not be totally typecast, but to be like typecast enough where like each character is like kind of the same.
Yeah.
But like, oh, what a choice.
It's definitely a choice.
Yeah, a good choice.
A good choice.
Yeah.
He fits it very well, and he also has this way because Willem Dafoe is such a good actor.
Mm-hmm.
He can make these insane character choices, and like insane lines just work.
Hark.
There's a like where he just goes,
yeah, and the gas bubble,
and he like burps out a bubble. And you're just like, what the fuck?
I love it.
I love the fact that like the first time it happens, there's no explanation.
Yeah.
And then at some point, like the other guy comes in. He's like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
He's like, oh, my father took out my blah blah blah.
Yeah.
To like see if gastric gases
or whatever
are important or whatever.
It turns out they are.
Yeah. So like these are all like insane ideas, but they work.
Yes.
And it's because like we said, like all the actors be acting.
They do all be acting.
They all be acting. I do think the most uncomfortable parts in this movie are definitely like in the first two sections, which is where they're in London, and then when they are in Lisbon.
So when
is it Lisbon?
Lisbon is the
Lisbon,
first
right?
location. Yeah.
I could not in my mind. I was like, it's Lisbon or Lebanon, and like I know one of them is definitely wrong.
Yeah, Lisbon, Portugal.
But yeah, yep. So they go to Lisbon because they are going to.
She's running off.
She's running off with Mark Ruffalo, who's supposed to be like a lawyer.
Yes.
Right?
And he's the one who is signing, like, because before she gets married to the first guy, like, Willem Dafoe's like, well, you got to stay here forever, and I'm going to make you sign an iron-tight contract.
Yeah. And then I could not understand what the contract was. I don't know if it was, like, supposed to be, like, a wedding, like a prenup almost.
A prenup, but a prenup that would, like, keep him in the
Yeah, place. Say, like, you're going to live here, you're going to, like, stay here, you're only going to be like leaving under the supervision of me or your husband.
And to me it still makes it creepier that he's still willing to like do that.
Who? Godwin?
No.
Or Duncan?
The
Mark Ruffalo.
Not Mark Ruffalo. Max.
Yes.
Like it's like, dude, you could have someone who's not a baby. And like you're gonna sacrifice your freedom to be with a baby.
And it didn't. And I know the idea. The idea is that she is developing so fast, she will quickly become not a baby. And I think the implication is this is all happening within weeks.
Yeah.
Because, like, they're essentially on a cruise.
Cruises were slower back then.
Cruises were more slower.
Yeah.
But, like, still, like, when they talk about so when they're on this cruise, she's like, "You're trapping me in this like water prison."
Yeah.
And he's like, "Whatever." And she's like, she goes and she meets these two people. And she says, "How long are we going to be here?" And they said, "Well, like we're stuck here until we get to Athens
in a couple days." Yeah.
3 days, she says.
Yeah.
And so then like this whole time, I'm like, "Holy shit!" There's so much happening, and they're still not to Athens.
I think, like I said there, I think we just missed them.
I think you mentioned, like, I don't know if it's like we missed it. I don't think we did. I think it's just like
we didn't miss it. It skips. It skips Athens.
So then, like, your sense of time is a little off, but still, like, you're within that small section of the Mediterranean.
I felt like the story took place within months. Like I could have seen this story taking place within a span of 9 months.
Yes.
I don't know what and I guess like maybe it's purposefully ambiguous as to what the timeline is here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like
and that's what I'm saying. Like, I think the implication for Max's character is that he's like, yeah, she might be a baby, but within a relative soonish amount of time, she'll be like a full-fledged adult. But I think the idea that you live with someone who was like a child,
Yeah.
I feel like that's the idea when people say like this is a grooming situation.
And now that we mention that, I guess though it was more normal back then, like for men to be significantly older than their wives. But
this is too much.
But the movie, and not that the movie can do anything, but like it doesn't set up any. I see why I see that Max is infatuated with her.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't set up any chemistry between them, and like how can you? Because she has the mind of an infant, right?
Mm-hmm.
But that to me is what made me really, really like dislike Max, especially when it got to the contract, because it's like there's nothing here other than you just being horny and ready to go, and like you are willing to give up everything.
Yeah, I don't know.
Strange.
It's weird. And then also, I do like the character of Duncan though, because he's introduced as this like scoundrel.
Yeah.
Who is like, he's the one who wants to like fuck around.
Yep.
But then he's the one who finds out so hard.
Yeah.
And he is like infatuated with. Again, this is all like a movie of like weirdos being in love with like
a child.
Yep.
Which for the Victoria era was the fashion back then.
But this is not like this is a young like teen. This is baby.
This is a child. This is a child. Right?
I think even when she like runs away with him, her mannerisms are like second grader, dude.
They are.
It's weird.
But that's, I mean,
when you have a character calling like, I'm going to do like the bouncing on you.
Yeah.
To talk about sex, the jumping, something like that. I was like, this is too much suspension of disbelief for me.
It was very common back then for them to infantilize women. It's a very like socially conservative culture, and that works to like men's advantage because they were able to fuck around more and have fewer consequences.
Yeah, I do like that she does get to interact with like different people in this, which does
she interacts with a lot of people,
which then does like influence her like maturity and like how she views the world. I do like that idea a lot. How it is that you could take someone who maybe is an adult, and you completely just mind wipe them, and then you just let them loose in society, and how are they going to develop?
And I like how there's no one that actually like. No one's responsible for like fully enlightening her.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's Gerard Carmichael's character.
Or was it Henry?
Harry Astley.
Harry.
Yeah. So like he initially seems like very nice, right? And it almost like in a lesser movie he could be played as like, oh, she goes for this nice guy. Because she realizes Mark Ruffalo's mean, but then she finds out this nice guy's mean.
But he never comes across as like nice guy to me though. He always comes across as very like cynical.
So yes, so in comparison to Mark Ruffalo, much nicer. Right?
Yes.
But then it's interesting. Like yes, cynical is like his defining character trait.
Mm-hmm.
But then even Emma Stone's character is like not about the cynicism.
Yeah.
Which is kind of cool, and I think that's what set this. So I have a limited capacity for taking absurdism, and I think that this is why, like, I gave this movie a very high rating, but I'm like, if I loved absurdism, then this would be like the perfect movie for me. I just can't handle the absurd that much.
Mm-hmm.
But this is where I really gained like respect for the movie because it's like a more overdone movie would have like had her realize like the cynic is right and like life is meaningless and blah blah blah.
But even I don't think that necessarily has to be like a part of like the cynicism doesn't have to be part of the absurdism.
No, it doesn't.
So that's for me, I think is why I was not able to rate this movie higher because I'm like, this is so absurd that I don't like it, and I appreciate it, but I'm not going to give it a pass on that.
No, the cynicism, I'm not linking them at all, other than that, like my general tastes do not align with absurdism,
Mhm.
and that caps how much I could enjoy a movie like this. But where the movie made moves that I think worked for me is how it handled cynicism.
Mm-hmm.
Where normally I see like people who try to make their high art films, they seem to like embrace cynicism a lot. And like for a movie that has like, it's odd. Like you don't feel like I felt more pain in American Fiction, which is a much more normal movie, than I did in this movie. There's bad stuff happening in this movie, but I never felt like pain, and I don't think the movie wants you to feel pain.
Mm-hmm.
And like Emma Stone's character, she's like, yeah, like some people suck, but I like the jumping.
Yeah.
So cynicism, bye bye.
And there's some things where there's some lines in this where she's like, "I hate how you make me feel, but I like that you fuck good."
Yes.
Yeah. That's the extent of it.
Yeah.
And she's and like I said, like there's a lot to like here in the way that she, like you said, like she learns these like life lessons on her own without, like you said, like somebody being fully responsible. Like she's an amalgamation of everything that she's encountered in this adventure, quote unquote, that she goes on, right? Yeah. And I like that she meets like the old lady. I keep on forgetting her name.
Oh, the one on the boat.
The one on the boat.
I also keep forgetting her name, but she's traveling partners with
Harry.
Yep.
And I like that, like
Mrs. Prim.
Is that her?
Maybe.
I thought that was the.
Maybe not.
I thought that was the. What's her name?
Oh, the one who works at Godwin's house. Yeah, I don't know who the old lady is.
Her servant.
Yeah.
And she is just so like, whatever.
Yeah.
Like everything's fine. Like I did my time.
She's been there, done that.
She's been there, done that. Exactly. Right. And I like that she's also able to then like influence Emma into like maybe not everything needs to be like so serious too.
Yeah.
I do think that where this movie, like, she's learning all these things, but then she starts to. So then they get to like Paris. That's like their end, because they get kicked out of the ship.
Correct.
Like
which
that was
a hilarious
not,
scene too.
It is a hilarious scene. Like they're not supposed to go to Paris, but that's where they end.
Right.
And that's what I'm trying to figure out, like where everything is, because if they start in London, which is I'm assuming where the trip sets off.
Yep. Lisbon
Portugal. Would be a little bit down.
Yeah, down, right? And still west, right?
Still west. And then they had to go down.
Athens was supposed to be the next stop, so you're going east. We never see Athens, right? But then Alexandria would be like a little southwest. And then is there anywhere in between Alexandria and Paris?
I wasn't trying to figure out. So if they started in London,
no, that makes sense. You would pass like certain locations, but you would basically like you would hit Paris on the loop back.
Where the hell is Alexandria? That's what I'm thinking on right now. So then it doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it does.
So Portugal down
to Portugal. Well, down
to Lisbon.
So it's they could have done they do Lisbon before that. So down to Lisbon. So you're still in the western part of Europe.
Then you go down in between.
So you still have to stay in the north end of the Mediterranean, and then you'll pass.
You go past the Strait of Gibraltar.
And then you'll end up in Greece, right?
If you go up. So you're still heading east, but then you have to go up. So my thought was they never made it to Greece. They went down through the Strait of Gibraltar, up, because then after they go to Alexandria, which would be down in, you said, by Egypt.
Yeah. So southeast, down from Athens down to Egypt, back up the Mediterranean, and there's definitely a lot of like. It does seem like there's a lot of like areas that they could have seen on the way back from France.
So I don't know.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, I don't even think they make it to Athens.
Well, they would definitely need to pass it to get to Egypt.
I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway.
It's confusing. Anyway, but the whole point is like, I think the once they get here and she's like, I'm gonna start doing a whole bunch of other investigations and like making money by being a prostitute. Yep. I'm like, I don't have time for this. At that point, I'm like, she's already learned that like this dude is a piece of shit.
Yeah.
The world is fucked. And now we're gonna be doing this whole experimenting on like her making money through prostitution. I'm like, well,
it's interesting. Her learning that the world is fucked So there's that scene in Alexandria where she sees like
the dead babies and the poor people like
yeah,
famished
and like it kind of comes out of nowhere a little
yep,
bit and then goes
yep.
and like
And her extent of things of dealing with this
yeah,
is I'm gonna give the poor my money,
yes,
but
and she
then
gives them Mark Ruffalo's money
she give them, but she doesn't even give the poor Mark Ruffalo's money. She gives them to like,
because she's the naive. She gives it to the boat people, and they're like, "Oh, we'll take it." Like,
and there's no consequence to that. There's no like someone telling her like you just got swindled, and then her learning like oh shit, like even when you try to do something nice, like people will take advantage of you. Like it felt like
yeah,
if you take that out of the movie, and then just say like they ran out of money because he got super drunk,
yeah.
and you just pop him into
Well, then that her not learning about the consequence of swindling makes it so that she never really has to like the most pain I see her feel is in like that Alexandria scene,
mm-hmm,
and like it never reaches, not even at the end, it like never reaches like that level again.
mm-hmm.
And I think I can't put my finger as to why the movie wants to do this, but I think the movie is very interested in that. They do not want this character to like suffer a lot.
I guess. Where were we?
Anyway, the movie was not interested in making this character suffer. Whereas if you like watched a normal good for her movie, like that girl, whoever it was, would be drunk, like drugged through the ringer. Like
Yeah,
like in Midsummer, like Florence Pugh, like
yeah,
has a sad time.
dude, that
Yeah,
movie is peak.
yeah,
Good for her.
and maybe like that works in this movie because it's so absurd. Like maybe that's what allows you to kind of buy the fact that like Bella Baxter would just not be keep on calling her Emma.
Emma Baxter,
Emma Baxter. And
Bella
Bella Baxter
Baxter.
would not be like just as sad as she was. And I think that's where to me, like the way it handled the whorehouse was like a little problematic. Cause I was like, these places were not good, like I don't know I'm a man saying this, but like these were not happy places. And it
No,
doesn't paint it as a happy place, but like when it tried to make like the madam like kind of likable, I was like,
yeah, like you
yeah,
just know that these women were
yeah,
taking advantage of other women too. Like,
yes, yeah,
yeah, I don't know. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's weird. Oh, and then like at this point, she's acting more adult. So
using good words.
you could be like, oh, this is her like having her like second sexual awakening
And I,
for a different purpose. And then they had to go and bring in that weird ass scene where the dad brings the kids. And I'm like,
yeah, so
bro.
weird. And I forget when it happens, but like she starts using bigger and bigger words. And like Mark, I forget what word it is, but Mark Ruffalo like realizes it much later than I did. He's like, "How can you like not know blah, but you can use a word like blah?"
Oh
And I
yeah.
was like, "Preach it, man!" But I've been thinking this for the past like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I think all that is explained by like
Yes,
when
it makes sense. The science of it makes
because of
sense.
this well because of Godwin,
Yep.
right? Because he's always talking in these insane words to like a child, and the
Yep.
kid has no fucking idea.
Bella Baxter is a homeschooled child.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The only thing that I just think is I think there's almost like a big shift then at the end for Bella because like throughout the whole thing she is very like we said she's very childish.
Mm-hmm.
We get to like the cruise and she's still childish.
Mm-hmm.
She gets to the whorehouse and
That's peak awakening.
it's like that's where she seems like kind of normal.
Yeah.
But then she goes home and she's like scientist.
Yeah.
And I'm like, whoa, how much time passed here?
Right.
Because she's like in the span of because the whole I know I was joking when I said like we don't have time for this subplot here,
Mm-hmm.
but it feels like that is the biggest stretch of like unseen time.
In between Paris and back home.
It just in Paris.
I never felt like I don't know. Yes, and there's like a montage
There's a montage of her like going to see like dead bodies and
And many men.
And many men. And I'm like, how long is this supposed to be? Because then right after that, she gets wind that Godwin is dying.
Are there other montages in the movie?
No. Yeah. I don't think so.
So that's definitely the longest stretch of time.
But again, because we don't have a sense of time, we're like, how long is this actually going on that she was able to then like develop into like Godwin levels of like scientific
I don't know,
like mindsets, right? And then I fucking died at the scene where she's like, I made money, I bought us these eclairs. And he's like, oh cool, he's eating, and she's like, yeah, I just banged this dude. And then after I banged him, I went to the bakery, and he's just like, fuck your eclairs.
And then like it's crazy how like fragile, like, I mean, you see his fragility a lot in the movie, but like in that moment you get the pinnacle of like he cannot take her banging anybody else
when he's like clearly a womanizer,
and it is peak male double standard, like personified. Is that where she says, and my friend sent me this line, dicks inside me for money? Like
is that what he says she got cocked?
Maybe.
She's like, you're gonna get cocked, and he was like, what?
For as funny as this movie was, there's not a lot of lines that I like remember, but there were some knee slappers
in the process of it, for sure. When she goes home, I thought that was the end of the movie. Mm-hmm. She goes home, Godwin is dying, they're gonna get married. I was like, oh, she's gonna go back. And then she's going to take over.
And then they Django it.
And then we get a whole... This is the second time I turned to you and I said, I do not have time for this. This movie's too long for this fucking...
Yeah.
A subplot of a subplot. She's... At an early point in the movie, she gets called Victoria something.
Right.
By some random woman. She's like, I have no idea who that is. I am Bella Baxter.
Right.
And then the husband shows up.
And he is the biggest piece of shit.
He is a piece of shit.
But he is brought by the second biggest piece of shit, who is Mark Ruffalo.
Who somehow got out of like a mental asylum.
Hey man, money can...
I guess, but if he was poor...
Yeah, I don't know how he would have done it.
I have no idea.
But it's interesting to see him at like rock bottom in the asylum and then like back to combed and sleek.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so odd. And like, then we have this guy who also wants to trap her, similar to how...
It's her previous husband. We never said in this that she killed herself. Well, she killed herself.
Oh, yeah. That's the whole thing, right? So she had jumped off a bridge.
Yeah.
She died, but she was pregnant.
And we learned in this scene that she was kind of a piece of shit.
Yes. Because she does ask, she's like, how was I? Why did I like you? Why did you like me?
Yeah.
And he says...
He shows and doesn't tell.
Yeah. He just basically goes, I'm a piece of shit, and you used to love that too.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, so I was also a piece of... And she goes like, oh, I was not a good person.
Yeah.
And he just does not react to that.
I love... when he pulls out the gun in the carriage, he's like, I've had to start carrying this around.
They gotta carry this around because the fucking hell hates me. Yeah. I'm like, oh. All right. So you are a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And so then, like, then we have her. This is where I thought, at the very beginning, when she's like stabbing the eyes off of like a corpse, when she's playing.
You thought that was going to be Chekhov's.
And I was like,
murder.
Well, not necessarily like that way of doing it, but I turned to you and I said, so she's going to kill someone in this, right?
I thought, okay, this is where I'm going to get into my killing the good for human movie genre. I thought she was going to kill everyone.
Oh.
I was like, in the movie, I'm like, Godwin needs to die. This is fucked up. Max needs to die. I was like, Mark Ruffalo obviously needs to die. And then this husband came up. I'm like, well, he's like definitely going to die. And like, kind of like in Django, where I'm like, well, this just has to end in like some absurd murder fest. But no one gets killed.
And that's okay. So I don't disagree that people needed to die. I didn't expect everyone, because I could see like, yes, Godwin is fucked.
Yeah,
he's insane. He is like mad scientist levels of insane.
Yeah,
but he did feel like he genuinely cared for her.
Yeah.
And she genuinely cared for him.
Yeah.
yes, she's upset when she finds out that like
That was a good line too when she expresses her upsetness. I can't remember how it's worded, but like
yeah, which is
yeah,
like I fucking hated you
yeah,
like when I found out that you did this to me.
yeah,
And I can see why you're like yeah he should probably go, but I can see why they wouldn't want him.
I can
Same
see why
with
they wouldn't.
Max.
So there's a case for all of them to die. Maybe they
Absolutely.
don't all have to die,
Yes.
but there's a case for all of them to die.
Now, where I thought they when I said this is too fucking long for this, I
Yeah,
was like, well, they need someone to be peak killable.
yeah,
Because at that point too, fucking Duncan was already like insane and in like an asylum. And I was like,
yeah,
well, that's his comeuppance.
yep,
Maybe he doesn't need to die because he technically didn't do anything like yeah, he's a piece of shit.
yeah,
But he didn't like he was not like peak awful. Whereas Alfie is
Alfie
like
is
from the
peak,
get go
yeah,
presented as like this man
is terrible.
is terrible.
Yeah,
And so I was like, he's the one who's going to get killed.
yeah.
And no,
He shoots himself in the foot.
he shoots himself in the foot, which when Thana went,
Right.
boop,
Yep.
she, and I don't know, like and then I was like, oh, maybe she will take his brain, and maybe she'll put Godwin's brain in there.
That's what I thought was going to happen.
So then now she has a happy dad who's
Yeah.
not dying of cancer. She's able to be married to this guy who genuinely does care for her, despite the fact that it's like very simp
Yeah.
behavior. But no, she just, I mean, she still kills him.
Right.
She just takes off his brain and replaces it with like a sheep goat.
Yeah. And I think it's a very feminine. So like revenge is very much like a male thing, like archetypically. Like not
Yeah.
that like there have been like female stories of revenge, but like historically like revenge is a male story, right? And I think good for her movies have very much taken like revenge can be a woman thing too.
Yeah.
And like they can kill the bad men, right?
I mean, rape revenge movies have been a thing for a long time, which is where like the woman gets like her big revenge for something awful.
They have been a thing for a long time, but predominantly like revenge, violent revenge specifically, has largely been like
a male
thing.
Yeah.
But like her, like finding her being victorious in her garden, like is all done without her ever like really like even though like her naivety and babiness goes away, like I don't know to what extent like her innocence does.
Yeah.
Like she definitely loses like quote unquote sexual innocence, but she never fully like dirties her hands. Of, like bad things.
Yeah.
Right.
Which is what I thought it was going to.
Which is and that's where I think this movie. That's where I gave this movie more like respect.
Yeah.
Where even though like the style is not necessarily my taste,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, he really did something different with this genre.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think if she did kill the men, like I would have still have liked the movie, but this would have just been like a 4-star movie for me at max. I think what elevates it is the fact that like you find something new to do with it. Do you remember the yellow wallpaper?
Yes.
Do you remember the ending of the yellow wallpaper?
Not. You know, it's insane. I just listened to a whole reading of it, like around Halloween time.
Oh, cool. So like,
and I'm like blanking.
So Halloween was a long time ago. So you're forgiven. But anyway, she like breaks out of her like room, and like her husband faints, which is like a sign of like weakness, right? And she like kind of crawls over him, and she's described as like with like very like powerful like feline like language, right? Mm-hmm. And like many people read that as a sign of like female dominance over the male, but then some other people read that as like, yeah, but he's still alive and in the house, so like even in these moments where like women can find moments of like agency, right, the domineering male presence has never been like thwarted. Mm-hmm. So I can go back and forth on this ending, like has she fully overcome patriarchy? Like maybe yes, because she's created her own little like utopia in her garden, but then at the same point like all these people still like exist, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know. Let me pause for 1 second.
I lied. I listened to that reading of the Yellow Wallpaper 11 months ago.
It is a long time ago.
Which is definitely a long time ago.
Yeah.
You know, I will say like this. like you said, this movie, I don't know that it kills like the good for her thing. I think
No,
this
I think
this
the
is
good for her
definitely
will
a
still
different
exist.
take on it. It's also like you mentioned, like it is a take on like like killing the patriarchy, right?
Yeah,
Because like by the end of the movie, like Max is kind of like, "Are you sure you still want to be with me?"
yeah,
And like she's like, "Yeah, like I clearly don't want this to be like under the contract that we had before."
right.
And they come to that understanding that you like they're gonna be like equals, right? Because like prior to that, like they absolutely were not.
Hey, good. How are you? Yeah,
Anyway,
yeah.
anyway, so what are we talking about? We're talking about the patriarchy, right?
Talk about the patriarchy.
Yeah. So we had to move. We had to move scene.
We have to move scene.
And setting.
Exactly.
But
The things we do for our fans.
the things we do for fans. I will say at the end of the day, ooh, Jesus. I did enjoy the movie. I came out with not necessarily like an appreciation,
Yeah.
but like an understanding that like even if this movie is not for me, I can appreciate.
There's good things happening here.
There's a lot of things happening here. I think I feel the same way as I do with like a lot of like Oscar bait movies, where I'm like, I know that this movie is well made, it's well crafted. I may not like it 100%, but like everybody's acting their ass off.
Yeah.
The scenes are set well. Like
I like the aesthetic.
Is fine. I kind of do, but I kind of don't. Like
Yeah.
I don't. I'm a little indifferent about it. But like it's not enough for me to like push it above in my rating.
Now, if
that makes sense.
If this movie won Best Picture, would you be like?
I
understand.
I would say no.
Gotcha.
I think there's other movies
that you think are more deserving.
I think are more deserving that have like say similar like caliber acting, similar caliber, like craft.
Yeah.
And the story would probably be
better. I think the screenplay. So if like your movie just has a bunch of banger lines, like does that count for like the best screenplay category, or is that something different?
I think it's something different.
Got you.
Like having snappy dialogue is not like it does not make up for like having a movie that's just way too fucking long.
Well, if there was a movie
too self-indulgent,
if there was a category for movie with the most banging lines, I would say like, yep, give it to this. Give it to this.
I would say as far as a comedy goes, this is pretty high up on my comedy list of the year because like there are some fucking lines here that made me like raffle mouth.
Yep.
But I still don't know that I would say like this is good enough to push it like into my top 10 by any stretch.
It's definitely not in my top 5, but I really enjoyed it. I give this movie the respect. I give this the respect that it's due.
I think I can like I said, I respect the movie, but I don't know that me respecting the movie is enough for me to say like this is in my, because like we've talked about how my top 10 movies are usually based on like what movies I had a good time with. And even if a movie is like not crafted well, I would say if I had a fantastic bang up job with it, like it's worth more to me than like this movie has like gripping dialogue and cinematography. Like I don't give a fuck about that. Like the vibes, the package, and like did I feel like I wasted my time?
Yeah.
No. Anyway, we will unless you have anything else to add.
No, I enjoyed it. I think some people will. I really, really liked it. I think some people will love this movie. This is not a watch it with your parents type of movie.
Yeah.
But you know what? Good for as much as I was bored through The Favorite, I'll say good for Lanthimos for giving me something that I had a good time with.
Yeah.
While still being
I agree.
Lanthimos.
Yeah, for sure. I will say there is no way this is cheaper than therapy.
No.
These people just need to go to therapy.
Yep.
All right, everybody. We'll be back with our top 10 best and worst of the year.
Yeah.
We'll pepper in some anticipation happening for next year. We got a chance to see American Fiction.
Excellent.
But that's not out for wide release, so
you'll get that episode.
You'll get that
soon.
Later.
Yes.
Later. All right, everybody. Thank you all for listening. Please remember to share, like to your friends.
Yes.
It's a lot of fun.
Looking to make millions of fans, billions of fans in 2024.
Until next time, we
are out. He has been Javier.
He has been Thana. This has been the Cine-Scoots Movie Show. Bye.
Bye.